Speaksies.
Welcome to Origin of Species. This is Steve here with my good friend Scott. This episode's going to be a little bit different. This episode is a tribute to a great friend and brother of ours, Jeff Forbes. Jeff recently passed away after a brief hospitalization. It was a surprise to all of us that a man so young and vital could be taken away from us. So this week we're going to look at some words and phrases that make us think about Jeff. Share some stories, try to give people that don't know him some insight into his life and personality. If you're a friend of Jeff, and Jeff had many friends, hopefully this will be a chance for you to relive just some great memories about a great guy who's been gone too soon.
Yes. I think Steve and I, this episode means a lot to both of us. We're excited to talk about Jeff. I think we'll see how it goes. I think it's like Steve said, you're going to get to know a little bit about Jeff. We're going to get to reminisce, and we're going to still do words and phrases, but we are dedicating this episode to our good friend Jeff Forbes, who we already miss terribly. So
miss him tons.
Yes.
So we're going to talk a little bit about some words and phrases that remind us of Jeff. And also, I'm going to take a chance to give some words about Jeff towards the end of the episode here. When at Jeff's funeral, I spoke to one of his brothers, Anthony, and Scott, you know Anthony, you know how he is. Anthony made it clear to me that I was the backup speaker if the main speaker didn't go. And he also made sure to add that they weren't sure what I was going to say. So that was, number one.
It was a good instinct. It was a good instinct by Anthony. It was. And I think he handled it very well because he let you know, hey, we thought about you. You were there, but. Yeah.
So to be clear, that was the correct call. Our friend Adam hit it out of the park. And, regarding the second thing, could they trust me with a microphone? Well, we'll see as I give the comments I had prepared to give. So to start out, we want to give you a little context about our friend Jeff. Jeff has never been a guest star on the episode, but we have discussed him in the past. And here's a couple clips about that.
Yeah. All right, let's do this. So,
I do have to say one last thing before we go, because if I could time travel, like some people like time travel, like I'd save JFK or I'd do this. This is what I wanted to do. So when you confirmed last night, I texted my friend Jeff Forbes, who is probably where I saw Step Into the AM, like at his house. And Jeff we're going to talk about weasels. Jeff hacking. Like he had to put a collar on it. And I told Jeff, I'm like, Jeff, you're the first person I'm telling. I'm talking to MC Search tomorrow night. And now I can back and say, I talked to MC Search and talked about your huge penis.
You did it, Steve. Good job.
Jeff Forbes' penis and MC.
Well, I'll tell.
I have to say, I was so delighted in that video because you had said you might bring something up, and that was the very end of the interview, and I thought he's not going to do it. It's not going to happen. That's why you see my face if you're watching on video. I was delighted. So should we go to the next one, or do you want to comment on?
No, let's go right to the next.
All right. This one was a little more recently.
Yeah.
Similar to like giving people the gas face, which we've already covered with MC Search, was You've Got the Dragon. Did I make that up or hallucinate that? Or is there some rap song that's in?
That actually did happen. That was, first of all, it came from a song from the late Biz Markie, rest in peace, called The Dragon, which was used to describe different odors that a person could have.
Oh.
Be it underarm or breath. And it was used one time by one of our good friends, and I will say his full name, because we also discussed him with MC Search, our good friend Jeff Forbes.
Yeah, that's who I was thinking of. Yeah,
that he told a school administrator whose name I will leave off, but was so corrupt that this individual was actually run out of Africa. I remember finding that newspaper, which was but Jeff Forbes.
That's right.
Told her that, and by the way, Jeff Forbes has an enormous penis. So, in case anyone's watching this and wondering, as you do a tribute to your friend, are you going to talk about how big his penis was? Yes, I am. And one of the reasons is if this was an episode about me, this would never be a topic. Someone would be doing something about, the origin of thimble, or, why are Vienna sausages called Vienna sausages? That would be what my tribute show would be about. So Scott, I've given you future reference. I've given you a head start. But that's not all we're going to talk about, Jeff. So when I think about Jeff, there's two words that always come up: big, and I think we kind of know why after that, but also heart. Jeff was just a guy with a lot of heart, and very simply, when you put the two words together, it gets to our first term that we're going to discuss: big-hearted. So go into dictionary.com. Big-hearted, adjective, generous, kind. You go to Merriam-Webster, definition of big-hearted: generous and charitable. And there's no really good stories that I found that originated this that I could track down. We know the term originates from 1865 to 1870, and sometimes you'll see a date of 1846. But that's really not what's important. What's important is Jeff is one of those people that, if there was one word to describe him, it would be big-hearted. So even though there's not a great story behind that, for us to put this out, that had to be the first thing to be discussed about Jeff. Not to go too much into it, but just looking at synonyms for big-hearted: fulsome, generous, unsparing, unselfish. I mean, that's Jeff. Jeff was just one of those guys that when you meet him, you always remember him, but there's just a gravity to him that brings you in, his big personality and his smile and his charm. But he was a sincere and just kind man, and just a big-hearted guy.
When you said the gravity, that's a good word, because I was thinking earlier as I was preparing for this episode, and I was like, what? There's something about Jeff that he had a way of, like, he would go up to anybody and immediately he'd look them in the eye, he'd make friends basically, and then make them feel welcome. I mean, I remember coming to the school being brand new with this, new cast of characters, and Jeff, who's a few years older than me, was just like, he treated me like one of the gang, you know what I mean? And it made me feel welcome. And I think he had that thing where he just made you, you felt good when you were around him. You felt like you were part of something, He's very magnetic in that sense.
Yeah. And one of the things that's great about Jeff is he's one of those people that you can meet him and know him. And sometimes people, you meet them and they become familiar with you too quickly. Like they'll say something and you're like, you don't know me that well to talk to me like that. Jeff had an ability to not only feel that out, but to make you feel comfortable with him quick. I mean, it was a skill. Jeff could make you feel like you've been pals with him. And I do mean pals, like in some old-timey way, just like you've known him for forever. Yeah. And just be familiar with you without being overly familiar or in a way that just felt inappropriate.
Well, yes, exactly. And like, I remember when I left the school that we all went to and then went to a new school, some of the kids from the new school would like end up in the same orbit. I was kind of bridging the gap between those two schools. And I mean, I remember specific instances. I remember I was dating Bianca and like we were at the movies and Jeff just happened to be there and he walks up and he's two-step, and which, by the way, I'll tell the two steps why that's my name's Two Steps today. It has to do with Jeff, obviously. And he goes, two steps. And Bianca's like, who is this person? And then she loved him and probably met him that one time. And it was like, she'd ask about him all the time, and but that was just one example. It always happened. Because again, I think it's something about when Jeff talked to you, and I know we're sitting here saying all these, this is all true stuff. Like we wouldn't just come on here and say this. When Jeff talked to you, you felt like he cared. Like he did care. There's no question. Even if it was somebody new, but especially if it was someone who, as the years went on, and, you would see him maybe less frequently. And when you talked to him, you knew that he cared. He was asking questions and he wanted to know the answer. When he said, how's your mom? He actually wanted to know, how's your mom?
Yeah.
You know what? And so that all does go to the heart, the big heart thing. But he can make new people feel that way as well, right from the beginning. So that is a skill or superpower, as you put it.
Yeah. So continuing with the theme of heart, big-hearted, I think, certainly defines Jeff, but that's not the only way to discuss his heart. So I'm going to look at another term that we actually do know the origin of, and it's heart of gold. So dictionary.com defines it as very good and kind in nature. This expression alludes to gold in a sense of something valued for its goodness. And it dates to the late 1500s. And unlike the other one, which I wasn't able to pin down, I was actually able to pin it down this one. Thank you, Scott, for your help on this. It comes from Shakespeare and from the play Henry V. So to hopefully this might be the worst thing that happens to Jeff, is I'm going to read from Shakespeare the quote that happens to us. And a lot of people didn't know also that one of Jeff's favorite movies, Mr. Baseball, which Jeff and I have probably seen more than anyone else has seen the movie Mr. is actually based on Henry V. So I thought that, no, but I think it's good to remember. And
I fall for this stuff and then I listen back to it later and I'm like, I sound like an idiot.
It's okay. Sorry. It's all about Jeff. If Jeff would have said it, you would have believed it too. So don't feel bad about that. So in the play Henry V, King Henry has gone undercover and he's with his soldiers and he's trying to find out what his soldiers actually think of him. So he's talking to a soldier by the name of Pistol. And this is what Pistol says when King Henry brings up the king. The king's a bawcock and a heart of gold, a lad of life, an imp of fame, of parents good, of fist most valiant. I kiss his dirty shoe, and from heartstring I love the lovely bully. So one of the things that's great about that is to say in this context, you see that he's talking about the king having a heart of gold, the king being pure and being honest. And I think this is sometimes a term that can be used kind of almost sarcastically of someone having a heart of gold. And I think in this case, it's not, and certainly not with Jeff. Jeff was just someone of a pure heart that, would help you and be there for you without guile, without pretense, without thinking how this benefited him. And I think fittingly, too, that the term bawcock is used in this.
I caught that.
Yeah, which
I've never heard that one before.
Is it a coincidence? I don't think so. So what is a bawcock? Definition of bawcock is it's an archaic term for a fine fellow.
We should start bringing that into everyday. And actually, probably not a good idea to bring it into everyday language. But.
Well, I don't know. We could. It depends on what context that you say that in, like what part of Norfolk that you start calling people bawcocks. But it depends on what sort of evening you want to have too.
Absolutely.
And this, I am going to tangent here a little bit. So one of my favorite stories that involved Jeff actually involves Norfolk, and this just came back to me, was one time when we were in high school, Jeff and our good friend Adam ended up in Norfolk in a bad part of town, and we're out kind of late. So we ended up going with Jeff's dad. My friend Jeff's brother, Chris, and I went with his dad and chased Jeff and Adam down in the middle of Norfolk, which concluded with Chris hanging out the window, shaking a 2x4 at him, telling him what their mom was going to do when they got home. So not directly about Jeff, but just to give an insight on him and his wonderful brothers that are great friends and as gracious as Jeff too. Just good people to the soul. So something about, Shakespeare and Jeff, might not see a big connection. If you met Jeff, he's not someone you think puffy shirts and soliloquies. But we'll talk a little bit later. Jeff was a showman. When Jeff was a performer of the highest rank, that I'll talk about that here in just a little bit. But first, want to give Scott some time here. Your turn to share some thoughts about Jeff.
Yes. So I had kind of been putting off looking up words and phrases. I kind of wasn't in the place to do it. And then I said, you know what? Let me look at, I had this huge list of ones that we haven't done that I thought we should do. And I'm reading this list. And the first instinct was to do below the belt for obvious reasons.
Very large reasons.
Which have been documented. But there wasn't really much to that. And actually, I don't want to associate, below the belt isn't really a good term. So as I was going through them, I was having a hard time finding them, and then I found one, which is true blue. And as soon as I read it, I was like, this is the one. And true blue is one that I don't remember using much as a kid. In fact, I think I probably first heard that term when I think Madonna came out with her album in 1986 and True Blue. And my thought was, okay, true blue, it just means you're really true, and it just rhymes with blue. So it just means you're faithful. Cause I was thinking of it in a relationship aspect. Right. Mm-hmm. So what I'm going to do though is talk about what the actual definition of it is. I'll then kind of go into why it makes me think about Jeff, and then we'll talk about the origins. So let's start with that's just the definition, which is from Wiktionary. There are two definitions they give. One is steadfastly loyal or faithful, unwavering in loyalty. And then number two, authentic, undoubtedly true, honest, which is pretty close to what I kind of thought it was, but it's more the loyal thing, just in general. And I said, yep, this is perfect for Jeff. And honest being in there is, I will tell actually like a mini story about Jeff. He was honest. Like he would tell you, he would call it like it was. Okay. So you did an annual camping trip, EGC, extremely great camping.
Yep.
And, let me say this too, by the way, Jeff was I don't know, Steve, how you feel. And by the way, I include myself and you in this. Jeff was the one guy that, like, if Jeff's not going, should we even do this? Like, we need Jeff there. Yeah. Like, we also need to add him because he's our dad. He's like the one that's going to make sure we don't all die. But also Jeff kind of had to be there. So I think we had gone to EGC. And so, like, I mean, my weight goes up and down. Like, I'll gain 70 pounds and lose 70 pounds. And I was not in my best shape. And Jeff had gotten a little bit overweight as well. I think he wasn't feeling too good about it. So at the end of the weekend, he's like, 2 steps next year. He's like, we're both going to be fit. We're losing weight, you know? And I was like, all right, let's do it. Like, we shook on it. And then, so I probably didn't see him for a whole year. Then we go camping again. And he comes up to me and he's happy to see me. He's like, 2 steps. And he's lost weight, but I haven't. And he just looks at me and he goes, you let me down 2 steps. And it wasn't, no malice. It was just, and I appreciated it so much because it's like, no bullshit. You let me down 2 steps. And you know what? The next year I did lose weight and he was like, 2 steps. He's like, you know, and gave me credit for it, you know. Anyway, I gained it back. So that's not the point. But he was honest, and True Blue does in one sense mean honest. And I did love that about him. So, but then also just the whole idea of being loyal.
Yeah.
I mean, loyal can mean a lot of different things. And as we look at this, we'll see that in a lot of ways, True Blue means loyal to some sort of like political party or even like team. And Jeff was very True Blue, loyal to his Duke Blue Devils, which I'm contractually obligated to say boo for Duke. Yeah. But, you know, no accounting for taste. He was a big Blue Devils fan. And so he was True Blue for the Blue Devils. But also, you know, in the sense of being someone that you could count on, being someone, you know, I think hopefully everyone listening, and I know Steve, you do, and hopefully everyone listening has those people in their life that you're like, man, if everything goes to hell, if everything blows up, you know, I thought I got it out of my system. You know, they'll be there. So, you know, Jeff was one of those guys. Man, this is hard. Okay.
Yeah. You want
So
to hop in for a bit?
Yeah, jump in for a second, then I'll tell my story.
Sure. So you talk about loyalty, and one of those things with Jeff, you mentioned he was loyal to Duke Blue Devils. He was also a Mets fan and a Cowboys fan, so nobody's perfect.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
But he was one of those guys too that he stuck. He was always a Mets fan. He was always a Duke fan. He was always a Cowboys fan. So, Mets back and forth, Duke pretty consistent. Cowboys in the late 80s, when I first got to know Jeff, were nothing to be proud of. The pre-Troy Aikman years before the Minnesota Vikings took Herschel Walker off their hands and gave them all the draft picks they used to basically build their Super Bowl teams. But Jeff was a Cowboys fan before it was cool. Not that it's cool now, but you know what I mean. And he stuck with them. And I want to say potentially it was Adam who was, when he was discussing Jeff, gave a description of one of the first arguments he saw Jeff have, talking about how the Cowboys were going to be good and just discounting whatever argument came up from the other person. Which now that I think about it, I've commented a lot about Jeff's penis, and I haven't really talked about when the first time I saw it. And I don't think there's a weird sex story with it. If there is, I've buried it in my head. I think it might have been to settle an argument. It might have been one of those things that when he was tired of arguing with somebody, that could appear and land on the table, sound like a wet sack of flour, and that was all he needed. And Jeff won that argument, and it's a good something again. Never will be a way I'm going to win an argument, but Jeff was loyal. I think that really does speak to his character. He's not a bandwagon guy. He had his teams, his true blue teams that he was loyal to, and he was always loyal to.
Right. Yes, and thank you for jumping in with that. That's funny, and I'm gonna pull it together and not do that throughout the show. But it's tough sometimes talking about a guy like Jeff. But he, so yes, loyal to his sports teams, but then also, there's one thing to be there for somebody and lend an ear, and then there's another thing to actually do something helpful. I had a situation a couple years ago where my mom's house had some repairs that needed to be done. And we had I won't get into the whole story, but we found out basically the day that the repairs were supposed to be done, the city of Virginia Beach had said, you got to take care of some of these shingles and some of these other things, or there could be a penalty. And I was like, what are we going to do? I can't do that stuff. I don't know anybody in Virginia. I don't know a contractor in Virginia Beach. I don't know. And it was just the thought popped into my head, call Jeff, and I did. And I called him from work and I said, look, I hate to do this to you, but I just want to know, do you have any ideas? Is there something can you recommend somebody? Is there someone that could get out there really quick? Is it something you could do? And I mean, he's got a full-time job, does contract work, on the side, but he's always busy. And as you'll hear in my clip that I'm going to play in a minute of Jeff, it's 7 days a week, nonstop hip hop working.
Oh yeah.
With Jeff. So he's always working, and he did it. He got in there, he took care of it. And I mean, it was huge. And just the fact that he stepped up and did some really kind of hard work. It was worse than what they thought going in, and I think Anthony came and helped too. So that's just to go to say that the whole family is really those type of people. But yeah, it meant a lot. It meant a lot to me when somebody does something like that. When you feel kind of helpless and they do something like help fix your mom's house. I mean, that's true blue to me.
And the other thing about Jeff, to add to that, is he's not. Some people maybe would have that character to help you out, but maybe they weren't good at what they did. Right. Jeff was just a naturally gifted carpenter. Not to say he didn't work at his trade and become more skilled at it, but he had, in the same way that, some people have a touch to play basketball or swing a bat or to write. Jeff just had it with his hands in the way that he could construct things and take care of things. So I imagine, I haven't seen the work he did, but I just knowing everything else he's done, he's not your weird uncle that will technically help you out.
Right.
He did it, and he did it right.
Yep. And it's just a testament that in a pinch, and that's what I was talking about. There are just those people that you're like, I can call, whether it's a couch to sleep on or whether it's something like this, which really, again, is, like you said, it's good work. The guy knows how to do things. I mean, Adam told a story about how he could fix anything, which I admire so much. It's something that is like magic to me. I can't fix anything. So
I can break it, most stuff.
Yeah.
I'm good at that. I don't know if
right.
there's, that maybe that was my role in the universe of Jeff, is to make things worse so he could fix them. But
I have people skills. Damn it. No. So, okay, let's talk though about where did True Blue come from? So, I'll be looking at Worldwide Words, and they note there that in England, it means a staunch supporter of the right-wing party. In Canada, it suggests a conservative, approach as well, being loyal to the right wing. In Australia, it's become associated with the Labour Party. So as you keep going, you see that it people can sort of colloquialize it and make it
right.
Fit for whatever need they have. But True Blue has really been around for a really long time. One theory about where it comes from is from the Virgin Mary, because if you look back at all the art, the paintings of Mary, she is generally wearing blue. So another theory had that it could be related to being pure Spanish nobility, being part of that lineage, which goes to Blue Blood, which I can't believe we haven't done Blue Blood yet. That was like a season 1. That was going to be, actually, now that I say this, that was going to be the 3rd episode of the show, but we had just done Cakewalk. And I was like, Blue Blood's a little dark. Let's put it off a couple weeks. And now it's been 127 or 8 episodes since then. We haven't done it, so I'm not going to go into the Blue Blood thing. But that's one of the thoughts of where this could have come from, is True Blue coming from you're a true blue blood. There are actually more that are even more unbelievable. So I'm not even going to go there because it's like, doesn't make any sense. These don't have any evidence at all. They're not right. Or at least, look, you say they're not right. It's possible that over the course of time, somebody said True Blue and meant they thought they were talking about your True Blue, like the Virgin Mary who's painted blue. But as I go on, you'll sort of see that's probably not where it started. The thing that you'll find most repeated online is a story that goes like this, that the city of it has to do with Coventry, England, which, by the way, I was trying to think, where have Coventry? I'm like, we've done Coventry. And my hackles went up a little bit because there was a stretch there of like everyone we did, there was some city or town in England that was like, was like a tourist thing where they would say, if you want to know where Paint the Town Red came from, or if you want to know where Blue Bloods came from. But it was Coventry. The one that we talked about was Peeping Tom, which actually Lady Godiva was said to have been, run through the streets. And we did a whole episode about that. That was also in Coventry. So if it sounds familiar. So the story about True Blue goes that in Coventry, in the English Midlands, they were famous for dyeing a blue that would neither change color nor fade in washing. And that True Blue was coined to indicate a person who would likewise never alter their principles nor their allegiances. So the phrase "as true as Coventry blue" is something that people would say. It originated in the 1600s, and it's still used in Coventry. Of course, they use "as true blue as Coventry," or "as true as Coventry blue." And the first time it was recorded was in 1670 by John Ray in the first edition of a complete collection of English proverbs. It says, "Coventry had formerly the reputation for dyeing of blues, insomuch that True Blue became a proverb to signify one that was always the same and like himself." So that's going to lead me to another Jeff story, if that's okay. And if it's not okay, please. I don't care. We're doing another Jeff story. So we've talked a lot about Jeff being memorable and authentic, and I thought this quote was a good time to jump in with this one, because it says, one that was always the same and like himself. And he was just kind of himself. And so background, I need to give some background on this, and then I'm going to play an audio clip. So I got to set this up. Back in the late 90s, I was in a band. with Chris's brother, by the way, and we made a CD. And back then, it was sort of a trend to do hidden tracks. And, hidden tracks aren't a thing anymore, I don't believe. But if you don't know what a hidden track is, it's basically at the end of the last song, after some time, some dead air has passed, either another song comes up or some whatever. So we had a tape of our friend Adam, who we've mentioned, at the Forbes house. For some reason, they're all in the bathroom while Chris is taking a shower. And by the way, I say for some reason, but this is normal how things would go.
Yeah, it was a Tuesday. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very normal. So what you're going to hear, there's going to be 3 voices on this. And I'm going to play a small clip of part of the hidden track, and then I'm going to tell you something funny about it. But the 3 voices you're going to hear are first Adam. It starts with him saying, Jeff just stepped into the bathroom. Well, and then you're going to hear Chris Forbes, who's taking a shower. Hope he doesn't mind I'm sharing this. I put it on a CD, which nobody bought, but anyway. And then you'll hear Jeff, and you'll know which one is Jeff. So this was a tape Adam was making back in the day. We didn't have iPhones. We didn't have any way to. He was making a tape to send to his girlfriend. Anyway, some of y'all folks, older people, will remember stuff like that. So let me see if I can do this, and it hasn't timed out on me. I'm gonna play this clip. 1 second. All right, here we go.
My friend J-double-F just joined us. He just rolled in the bathroom. Just stepped in the room.
And Chris is still in the shower.
I
had another hard day at work. That's why
Yeah.
I'm taking this long shower.
Today, this is like no joke. Jeff can't say nothing about the hard work. Because Chris freaking went in. What time did you go to work?
8:30.
Went to work at 8:30.
Get home until 5:30.
Chris didn't get home until 5:30. Chris put in a long tail day.
On one hard day, let's all do him. Sad story.
It'll be all right.
Ask Chuck how long you work today.
How was your day?
3 hours. 4 hours.
4 hours.
Because I work all day Saturday and all day Sunday. 7 days a week, non-stop.
Yep.
Hip hop.
So that was Jeff in his element, and that's a person you don't forget.
Yeah, especially if he walks in the bathroom where you're taking a shower.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, that goes on. There's like another 2 minutes of that, and there's actually way more funny stuff. I just wasn't going to play the whole thing on here. You'll have to buy the CD. No, I'm just kidding. That's not anywhere to find. But anyway, the funny part of the story was that I think that clip was much more popular than any songs that were on the CD. And I'd have people ask about it. And this is a true story. Chris Glissman, Steve's brother, and I were at a concert back. It was a couple years after college. And this guy comes up to us. We were in Richmond at the time. And this guy comes up and he goes, "Hey, were you guys in Brave Little Toaster?" Oh, that was the band. He's like, "Were you guys in the band Brave Little Toaster?" And we're like, "Yeah." "How'd you know that?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I used to see y'all shows when you were in Lynchburg." And he goes, "I've been dying to ask you guys this question." He goes, "At the end, that guy that's like talking about nonstop hip hop," he goes, is that him? Is that a real guy? Is he putting on a character? Is that how he normally is? Like, I need to know more about this guy." And I was just like, and we just started laughing. We're just like, "That's just Jeff." Like, that was Jeff. And by the way, if you couldn't pick up the context of that conversation, it was about who was working harder and had more hours of work in the day. And Chris worked 5 hours, and Jeff's like, "One hard day, let's all boo-hoo." It just, I don't know. I treasure that clip. It's so good, and it's so Jeff. So anyway, only one Jeff, and he was true to himself. So to wrap it up though, the Coventry die, it definitely was a thing, and but I think they kind of co-opted it. After reading Michael Quinion from Worldwide Words, he thinks it's maybe a little more to it than that. He notes that in medieval Europe, blue was the color of faithfulness or constancy, whose opposite was green. There's a poem from 1450 called "Against Women Unconstant," And people claim that Chaucer wrote it, but we're not sure.
Right.
And it criticizes an unsteadfast woman for being like a weathercock. So we got cock in there again.
Yep.
But a weather vane that turns its face with every wind. It says, quote, "Instead of blue, thus may ye were all green." So that's kind of like a diss from Chaucer, saying you guys aren't blue, you're green. But it's just showing you that blue was the opposite of unsteadfast. It was steadfast and loyal. So that had been around for a while. And then he comes to the same conclusion I did, which was, yes, it's been used a lot, but really it has to do with the rhyme. It's the fact that blue has just meant this thing for hundreds of years, and saying somebody's true blue, it just works, right? It just is what it is. It means they're truly faithful, they're truly loyal, and that's blue. That's true blue. And
it's one of those phrases too that just when you say it, it's sonorous. It just flows well together. True blue, and maybe it's just because we've heard it so much. You almost like, I feel like even if it's not explained to you what exactly it means, you seem to know it, or it's used so much that you just absorb.
Oh, I was going to throw it on a light note here as I pass the mic back to you. You're good with music trivia. Do you know who Madonna named True Blue after? It's a person in her life.
She named the album True Blue after.
She named the album True Blue, and it was after somebody.
Was it Sean Penn?
It was Sean Penn. Very well done. They were married at the time, and she was... he would use that term a lot, and then also she was kind of saying back to him that he was true blue, and we all know that, and they're still together today.
That's right. It's a storybook marriage that has lasted for almost 40 years.
But good job, put on the spot. Oh, real quick, you know what? Should I tell my 2 steps thing now, or should we wait? I think I've talked enough. Why don't you?
No, you keep. It's Jeff. Okay. You talk as much as you want.
Real quick. So I put 2 steps on as my name. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see that, and it's because another Jeff thing. Well, actually, this one was Shane Clements who gave me this nickname, but then Jeff ran with it because we were in baseball practice, and I was one of the younger guys, and Shane was one of the top players on the team, and Jeff was a top player on the team playing first base, and there was a ground ball hit in practice, and I was playing second base, and I guess I didn't go after it as hard as I should have. And Shane was like, "Mick G," he's like, you took 2 steps. You got to take more than 2 steps, you know? And Jeff heard that, and I was all tough. 2 steps. And for the next, 30 years, that is what and also the other Forbes. See, when I saw Anthony the other day, it's like, take 2 steps, and so I cherish that nickname. I think it's the only nickname I've ever actually had, or that I actually, to my face, that I like. So
I was going to say to your face, that's probably
right.
One,
So I like it because it also indicates that I once played sports or danced. You know what I mean? Like there's something about
both
that works. So yeah. So anyway, that's the 2 steps thing, and it makes me. I just love even thinking about, when I think about Jeff, I just think about every time I would see him, if I hadn't seen him for a while, every time, come up to me, he was happy to see me, and he'd say, 2 steps, and then he'd just, boom, start asking me questions, and we'd just start talking, and it was just like, it was wonderful. So, okay, Steve, let's go back to you. I think you have another one for us.
I do. I have another one. So I was speaking earlier of Heart of Gold and how that came from Shakespeare, and again, Jeff, not a guy that you would meet and maybe think of Shakespeare immediately, but after this, I think you will. And when it comes to our next term, Raconteur. Did I say it right?
Yeah, I think you said it right. Raconteur, yeah.
Yeah, and if I didn't, Jeff wouldn't judge me. He would still love me, so it'll be okay. So we're going to talk about that. So the story of this, the origin of this, we're going to go to Merriam-Webster. The story of Raconteur is a tale of telling and counting. English speakers borrowed the word from French, where it traces back to the old French verb raconter, meaning to tell. Raconter, in turn, was formed from another old French verb, éconter or écompteur, meaning to tell or to count, which is ultimately from the Latin computere. And by the way, I've pronounced all these words wrong, and that's all right, meaning to count. So Raconteur has been part of the English vocabulary since at least 1828. And what that is, it's someone who is just a gifted or skilled storyteller, somebody who excels in telling something. Merriam-Webster succinctly puts it as a person who excels in telling anecdotes. And Jeff was somebody that when he told you a story, he didn't just tell you the story. He became a one-man show, acting out whatever was discussed at the time. So I'll give an example that our friend Adam shared at Jeff's service. And Adam, thank you again for the great speech that you gave, and also just a great example that I will rip off from you. So Adam was recounting one day how Jeff had seen some sports highlights. And the highlight of the day was from several years ago when Nolan Ryan was still pitching, and he hit the I think he was on the White Sox at the time. Robin Ventura hit him, a younger guy. Nolan Ryan was in his 40s at the time. Hit him with the fastball, and Robin Ventura charged the mound. And this young man goes out there thinking he's going to, teach his old pitcher a lesson. And Nolan Ryan put Robin Ventura in a headlock, turned away from the umpire, and repeatedly punched him in the face. So if you've seen this highlight, you know what it's like. Adam also recounted that this was in the days before YouTube and Sports Center running 24 hours a day. This was you had to catch like the CNN Sports Update.
Yes.
On the 10s or 20s.
This is like the JFK assassination. I remember where I was when I saw it. Like I was in a hotel room with some other CYA guys doing baseball, and it was like everyone gathered around and just could not believe it was the greatest thing. Because also, like, nobody likes Robin Ventura.
Yeah,
it was perfect.
It was. So Adam was one of those people also that somehow missed it. So when Jeff heard this, he couldn't believe that had happened. So what Jeff did was, I believe Adam said it was Anthony was in the room, and seeing this have happened in many ways 100 times, Anthony was not aware about what was about to happen, that he was going to become a prop in a story. So Jeff then grabbed Anthony out of nowhere, put him in a headlock, and proceeded to reenact the assault on Robin Ventura. And if you knew Anthony too, the poor guy was just standing there probably doing something else. And the next thing you know, that he's getting pounded on in front of everybody. But that was, again, another Jeffism, a way to tell a story. He didn't just tell the story. Yeah. Jeff was also one of the best reenactors of what a referee should have done in a situation. So we would, as a true Blue Devils fan, there was a lot of discussion about referee calls. And of course, Jeff being a fan, your team never fouls or never does anything wrong, and is always oppressed by the other team. Jeff was consistent like all of us in keeping with that, except that when he would reenact what should have happened, he would do it much bigger, much more of a performance. Animated, that's the word I'm looking for, especially when there was an offensive foul or a charge. I think one of the sad things of Jeff no longer being with us is that he never had a chance to either be a basketball referee, or what I think his real calling would have been is to be an umpire.
Home plate umpire, absolutely.
I remember countless discussions. I'm sure you've seen these too, Jeff, recounting what should have happened during a play, what the umpire should have done. And
I can't do it, but
yeah, I mean, it was the whole thing. It was Leslie Nielsen and Naked Gun has nothing on Jeff. Jeff actually would have been, with all seriousness, a tremendous umpire. We used to
talk about that. We were like, Jeff, I mean, he was busy working a bunch of jobs, but we were like, Jeff, you've got to at some point, like, just be either a little league umpire or a softball. The world needs to see your umpiring gifts.
Yeah, and also his baseball insight. Was tremendous. And I do say that Jeff's temperament, I don't know how good of an umpire he would have been, but it would have been worthwhile then just to see someone argue with him to see how that would have ended, and if his umpiring career might have ended like that Nolan Ryan thing with somebody else being in it. Jeff putting someone else in a headlock and mercilessly.
I can see Jeff getting into like a face-to-face argument with like a coach and just like, just bump me. You know what I mean? I can see it. Yeah.
So as I mentioned earlier, at Jeff's service, our good friend Adam Brola spoke. I don't know, I've been hiding his last name the whole time, like we were talking about some crimes, but maybe he's done some other illegal bathroom recording. I don't think so. But Adam spoke at Jeff's service, which was wonderful, and Adam was the best, proper choice. What a wonderful speaker and a great friend, and I'm very glad he was able to do that. And as I mentioned, Anthony told me, pardon me, that I was on the bench, and also they weren't sure what I was going to say. So, again, they made right decision in both ways, but this is my opportunity to share what I would have said if I had the chance to speak for Jeff. So, good afternoon. For those who don't know me, my name is Steve Glissman. I grew up here in Virginia Beach with Jeff and all his brothers. Brian, Mark, Chris, Anthony, and Brad. Brian, not as much. He was older and very scary, and still is scary to me. But Mark, Chris, Anthony, Brad, and Jeff spent a lot of time together as kids. I currently reside in Richmond, Virginia. In case anyone here is not sure where that is, it's right outside Chesterfield. Mark knows what I'm talking about. It's very wonderful to see y'all today. I'm sorry that we're together on such a sad occasion, but I'm honored to have a moment to speak to you about our mutual friend and brother, Jeffrey Todd Forbes. When I think of Jeff, there's always one word that comes to top of mind. And that word is big. Jeff had a big personality. When you were greeted by Jeff, you were not given a stealthy businessman's handshake. First, you would get a loud greeting, potentially from across the room. You would have your name or your nickname shouted at you. You would get a hug, and if you were a guy, you'd either get a pat on the backside or a quick underhand to your crotch, just to let you know he was there. It was done in a way, again, that some people, you hear that and you would think, who is this person? But not with Jeff. It was part of Jeff's just big personality, the way he brought you in and made you feel like you were there. Jeff also had a big memory, a huge memory. He was a walking Facebook of information. Whenever I saw Jeff, he had always just seen somebody. It could be somebody that I hadn't seen in years or maybe even thought about in years, but Jeff had seen them. And Jeff always had a positive spin on what was going on with those people. I never heard a bad word about how someone was doing. Even if they had gone through some tough times, maybe a marriage had ended, didn't matter. Jeff spun it in the right way. And Jeff always made clear how well everyone was doing. And by the way, and this Scott, you can testify this is true.
Yeah,
the median salary for everybody was $150,000.
Yeah.
Jeff had the glass half full view of how everyone was doing and how life was going. And it's just one of the many great things about his big personality and his big memory to know all that. Pardon me one moment.
Sure.
Hey, Mark, I got a text. It's from our friend in Chesterfield. All right, we got an offer. There's a Thanksgiving theme. I'm supposed to dress up like a pilgrim, but only wear the hat. You're supposed to dress up like a turkey, and he's going to bring the stuffing. However, once my fee comes out of this, it looks like this is going to net you about $34. So let's talk about this when we're done. I'll get back with you, Mark. Where was I? So when Jeff was also just a big storyteller, and when he told a story, it was a big event. It wasn't just the facts of the story. It wasn't just the location. It wasn't just basic reporting. He would take you back to that. You would have a situation that you felt like you were there, that you had experienced everything that had happened. It was a living 3D movie presentation that could also result in you being punched in the face as part of the presentation. And when I think of a storyteller, a raconteur maybe, if that's even pronounced right, which I don't think it is, that was Jeff. Jeff was a big storyteller. Now, I know we're at church, which means I need to have decorum, but I need to also be honest. I wouldn't be true to myself or true to Jeff. if I didn't talk about the biggest thing about Jeff. Sorry. Out of everyone I've ever known, no matter, pardon me, I get it. Out of everyone I've ever met or known, no one had a bigger heart than Jeff Forbes. Jeff was someone that would do anything for you. He was someone that would be there for you. He was someone that would be there for you any time of day or night if you needed him. There's no one with a heart like Jeff. No one who loved like Jeff. A brother unlike anyone else. And I love him and I miss him. And I'm glad I had time to know him. And I'm glad I had time to know him on this earth. I would be remiss to discuss Jeff's heart without discussing how he got it. Jeff received his generous, loving heart from his mom, Gladys. Gladys is a wonderful mother who raised many boys and put up with other people that would always be at her house, hanging around, not going home. And I was certainly one of those. And Gladys, I want you to know that Jeff's heart didn't come out of nowhere. He got it from you. And you shared your heart with Jeff. And also with all your other sons who are wonderful. And also are all gay, to be clear. Especially Mark, not Brian, because he still scares me. So thank you for letting me speak about my friend Jeff.
We love you, Jeff.
Miss you, buddy. So, to end this episode is kind of tough. Jeff Forbes, we love you. We've talked about your big heart. We've talked about your heart of gold. We've talked about other things that are big about you. We've talked about how you're true blue and a storyteller unlike no other. And want you to know that you are loved and we will never forget you. For those who know Jeff or those who don't know Jeff and you'd like to contribute to his memory, Jeff requested that you donate to your local SPCA or other animal rescue organization. So much to talk about with Jeff. We didn't talk enough about how much he loved dogs and all the dogs he had too. And if you want to give back, that's one way to do that. And another way is just to live as much like Jeff as you can.
Yep, I think that's a good way to end it. So, this obviously episode is dedicated to Jeff. So, thank you guys. Thanks everyone for listening.
Thanks for listening.
We'll see you next time.
This right here, tell me what goes out to everyone that has lost someone that they truly love. Come on, check it out. Seems like yesterday we used to rock the show. I laced the track, you locked the flow. So far from hanging on the block for dough. Notorious, they got to know that life ain't always what it seemed to be. Words can't express what you mean to me. Even though you're gone, we still a team. Through your family, I'll fulfill your dreams.